Tonight's webinar is hosted by Dr. Kathy Dial, Director of Kids, Kins, and Caregivers, Inc. Dr. Dial has spent her entire career in social work. She has over 20 years of social work experience in direct practice, group work, grant writing, teaching, advocacy, program and policy development, and program evaluation in both child welfare and geriatric settings. She has previously worked as a child welfare counselor for individuals and families and was a former director of both older adult services and youth and family services for Catholic Charities of Eastern Virginia. Her expertise lies in the area of gerontology, kinship care, grandparents raising grandchildren and relative caregivers, and child welfare services. Before I turn this over to Dr. Dial, I want to remind our guests to please use the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen so that we may answer your questions during our presentation. At this time, I would like to turn the webinar over to Dr. Dial. Welcome, Dr. Dial.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. How are you tonight?
We're doing great. Thank you. We love having you here.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. And as you know, this is my favorite topic to discuss. So we'll go ahead and get started tonight. So tonight, as we talk about grand families, enjoying the joys and challenges, we're going to focus on these three areas. One is fostering positive relationships and healthy communication. Another, we're going to look at some resources for our kinship families for you. We're going to also talk about strategies for self-care. But I want to share, before we get started on looking at positive relationships, I would like to share with you a few statistics. Grand families or kinship families are one of the fastest growing family forms in the United States. And I want you to think about this when you compare you and your family to others here in Virginia. We have 175,000 children that are currently living in homes where householders are either their grandparents or other relatives. It could be an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a sibling. Of those, we have 67,534 grandparents who are the householders responsible for these children. So if you're one of those, you're one of the 67,000 plus. And in addition, we have 55,000 children living in homes with a relative with no parent present. And when you think of 55,000, I like to think of a small town, similar to what I grew up in. As we know, there are multiple reasons that you have stepped up to raise a relative's child. It could be economics, it could be issues of substance abuse, mental health issues, the death of a parent, incarceration, we have the military, we have young teenage parents, there are issues of abuse and neglect. Unfortunately, there's domestic violence and abandonment. So there's multiple reasons why you're stepping up to raise a child in a kinship family. And also one of the reasons that many of the families share with me, the kinship families, is that they do not want the child going into foster care. So let's move on to looking at the issues of fostering positive relationships and healthy communication. As we know, when we're looking at any type of family relationship, it's very dynamic and fluid, and it can sometimes be troubling, sometimes it can be rewarding. One of the things we really do know that when children move into living with a relative, there are certain things that stay in place or that are already there. Number one is these family members have pre-existing relationships. That relationship between the parents, the relationship between the adult children and their biological child, the relationship between aunts and uncles. So everything's there. Those who get along well, those who don't get along well, those things just move in with the families. Also, what we've found out is that when families move in, or when the grandchild comes to live with grandma, or the cousin comes to live with a cousin, or Aunt Jane decides that she needs to step in and raise Tommy, there's still some issues looking at the status of family members. For example, parents, for some of them, feel they still have the same rights, that they're still the parent and can make decisions for that child, even though Aunt Jane's raising the child or grandma's raising the child. Others feel they have the same privileges. Children come in and they have the same expectations. I don't have to clean my room. I eat when I want to. We always have pizza on Saturday night. And even grandma and grandpa have pre-existing expectations. I know for many of us, when we were parented, we had that look from mom or dad or grandma. We knew what that look meant. It was, stop what you're doing. Don't you go any further. You know better than that. But sometimes that doesn't quite work today. So that's one of the other issues. And because of that, families really struggle with some potential issues of mixed emotions. You know, am I happy with this? Am I unhappy? Am I angry? Am I grieving? Did someone steal my children from me? Gee, I'm relieved they're helping me. Can you do more? Or you're not parenting how I wanted to parent. So we have those emotions. Others are very supportive. Other times we have issues of jealousy. Well, mom, when I was growing up, I didn't get to do that. You made me do my homework first. I had to be in the house by 9 o'clock. I had to be off the phone by 9:30. Why are you allowing him to go out till 10 o'clock on the weekends? Why does he have a phone? So even simple things like that. And then there's the issue of the gift of time and attention. If we have children in the home and we add another child, all of a sudden our time diminishes. One of our families was parenting and she had 3 children, and 2 of them had grown and were out in the home. One was in college and one was married. The other one was a high school senior. She was so excited. It was her time now, just for her and her mom and dad. But unfortunately, or fortunately, what happened is mom and dad stepped up and took their nephew into the home. And all of a sudden, that senior found that she had to share that time with mom and dad. So that was a real struggle for her. For others, for cousins maybe who are getting together, it's sharing things and just enjoying each other's. But overall, we have to think about the difference in family relationships and dynamics. On the sheet here, when we talk about transitional issues, I want to go back one. Everyone has their own hopes and dreams. Us as grandparents, the biological parents, mom and dad, and the children have their own hopes and dreams. And because of that, as children move back and forth between family members, those hopes and dreams sometimes are squashed, or they're challenged, or they're not just right in place what people are hoping for. So they're really struggling. Then we look at issues of grief and adjustment. Think about the child that was in their neighborhood and they had their group of friends, they had their school clubs, they had their favorite teacher, they were involved in a good faith community, and things weren't working and they had to move to another neighborhood, even to another state. And even though they may feel safer in the house with grandma and grandpa or those cousins or that aunt or uncle, there's still an adjustment period and a sense of grief and loss. And if we're thinking about, let's look at the issues of grief and loss for grandma and grandpa, or that adult aunt or uncle. Maybe they were at their ages where they were empty nesters. And when they got off work, if I cooked dinner, that was fine. If I didn't cook dinner, that was fine too. But when you have children, that changes. There was also, for many of our families, they were looking at, now's the time where I'm ready to retire. I have the money to put away to vacation, to cruise, to live those lifelong dreams. And now we have to give, we've chosen to go a different direction. So that's doing some more adjusting. We also are looking at accepting new relationships. Both of them are struggling, all three of them, family members. We also look at guilt. This doesn't happen to my family. I raised my child. They went to the best schools. I provided them with extracurricular activities. They had the clothes they want. They received the love. And now all of a sudden I'm stepping in and parenting, and it's a real struggle. What am I going to tell my friends? Then there's that guilt from the biological parent who all of a sudden is finding themselves, I can't parent. I'm supposed to be the mom and step forward and take care of this child, but I'm not able to do it for a reason. Maybe I'm not doing well. I have mental health issues. I have a substance abuse issue. I'm finding myself in a domestic violence situation. So I'm feeling guilty because that child is going to live with someone else. And then we look at divided loyalty. And I like to think of divided loyalty when you're looking at a child, of the child's in the middle, like a rubber band. And his biological parents are on one side, and the kinship family he's living with now is on the other side. And they're both pulling, and he doesn't know. He wants to go to both sides, and he wants to keep both sides happy, but he doesn't know how to do that without causing families to be upset and having some family issues and breakdown in communication. We also talked about past family issues coming into the play. And also now we're looking for some families, the whole issue of what are we going to need to do to plan for illness? If there's an issue of COVID, if I'm staying with grandma and grandpa, if they become ill, who's going to take care of me, or who am I going to ask to take care of them? Or the worst case scenario is death. So those are really struggling issues. So we know that as families move into kinship families, we have those realignment of family positions, the resistance to change, health and medical issues. Sometimes there's the sabotage. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some points to remember. And this is my favorite slide, I think, because you're looking at children, they're having that serious discussion. And if I had to ask any of you who had that serious discussion, I would imagine each of you could put your hands up tonight. And then there's that time when we're having that good time when there's that close enough. And I like to look at the heart as that symbol of unconditional love. So one of the things I want to remind you of is that children who come into kinship families have experienced some type of trauma. And as a result, it impacts how they react to situations. Different things trigger behavior. It may trigger anger. It may trigger withdrawal. It may trigger physical reactions. But all of those are as a result of the triggering. Also, because of the trauma, it impacts the brain and how they react to stress and how quickly they can react to stress. But some of the things that we do know is that everyone has two basic needs. One is that we all have a sense of belonging and we all want to feel significant. And when our children don't feel they belong or have significance, they react. And what we call this is, for most of us, we call misbehavior. They're misbehaving. But actually, they're doing 4 different things. One is they're trying to seek your attention because they want to belong and feel significant. So they're actually telling you, please notice me, involve me usefully. I want to be a part of this family. Number 2 is there's maybe this power struggle, and that's the sense of belonging and significance. And then at that point in time, they're saying, let me help. Give me some choices. Now, if you think about it, if you had your choice, if you're going to wear the red sweater or the navy sweater, would you prefer that choice? Or would you prefer someone to come in and tell you, you're wearing the navy sweater? And it's really simple. We all like choices, so do children. So it works better if we're able to provide them with a couple of choices, because they feel like it's a belonging and they're having significance and they have that sense of power to make choices. The other thing we see with children when they don't feel that they belong or their social and emotional needs aren't met is that they take out revenge on us. You're not going to catch me doing that. I'm going to get even with you. Just you wait and see. And that's because I'm hurting. So that's how we react. We're going to be revengeful because we are really hurting. So as parents, we just need to step back and validate their feelings. Step in their shoes and really think about, what are they feeling now? Are they angry? Are they sad? Are they left out? Are they lonesome? Are they grieving? What's going on? We need to look at those. And last of all, if we don't feel that we belong and we're not significant, we're going to feel we're inadequate. There's something wrong with us. But that message is, don't give up on me. Show me in small steps what it is you want to be. So that's the social and emotional needs that we work on in families. The other one is, don't ask what's wrong with you. Boy, we know that if someone says, what's wrong with you? We step back right away and get on the defensive. Ask what happened. And then when they tell us and we look at their behavior, we're going to see, what are they trying to tell us? What is their need that we can focus on? The next one is to help set up a very stable environment. Children that are moving into kinship families do much better if there's a routine. We all do. Encourage their input into your home. One of the best ways to do that is to set up time for a weekly family meeting. I would advise not doing it at dinner time. Do it outside of a mealtime where you can all sit down, where everyone has a chance to set up some family rules and input and take notes so that you can make decisions as a family. At that point in time, too, you can also set up some clear and age-appropriate house rules. Children also need their own space if at all possible, and that can be used for 2 ways. One is that when they need to get control of their emotions, when they need to have a place they feel safe to go to, that's where they can go and sit. They may have a lovey, they may have a book, they may have a favorite pillow, something there that they can sit down and think and regain their composure. Offer and encourage open and honest communication. As a family, it's okay to say, I don't know the answer. And as parents, we need to be able to say that and not feel guilty. We need to help them learn to identify their emotions and make it okay to them to express those emotions. We know that our young children communicate with play, and we can watch that. And we need to be aware of triggers, and triggers not only for what triggers children's emotions and reactions, but what's going to trigger our emotions and our reactions. It could be smells, it could be music, it could be holidays, it can be birthdays, it can be special things to eat, it can be TV shows, but pay attention to those things. And that way, when those emotions start reacting, or you start reacting to your emotions, and then you can be aware of those triggers so that you know how to respond accordingly. So those are some points on family relationships. So let's go on to the next one and talk about resources. Now we know the need for resources is never ending, and they can run the gamut of financial needs, clothing. I like to give the example of teenage boys. Now, I know teenage boys do two things very well. One is they grow quickly, they outgrow their shoes quickly, and they also enjoy eating for the most part. We have a joke when we do our support groups that they're sort of attached to the refrigerator. So there's the need for clothing, there's sometimes the need for extra food, there's the need for housing if you're bringing children into your home and you don't have enough bedrooms, or you need to rearrange furniture, educational needs, counseling needs, spiritual, professional, so the needs go on. These are some of the major resources that may be a benefit to you. FAMOUS or Medicaid, which is for your health care, not only for the child, but based on your income as an adult, you may qualify for FAMOUS for health insurance to make sure your medical needs are taken care of. The second one is TANF child-only benefits, which is applying for a benefit through the Department of Human Services based on just the child, not on your total family income. You may qualify for that too. Child care. Some of us are still working, and when you have a child that's under the age of being able to stay home alone, we have to look at child care. And we know child care is not cheap. It's very costly, and it's hard to find reliable child care. So you may qualify for some child care assistance. And that's a similar program that you apply through for under Commonwealth Virginia. SNAP benefits, also known as food stamps, is based on total family income. We have energy assistance programs because those utility bills don't slow down. And sometimes that added electricity and that added water usage kicks up our utility bills. Next, we have child support enforcement for child support payments. Social Security Administration looks at Social Security benefits, and Social Security disability if the child has some disability issues you're struggling with. Through the Virginia Department of Aging, there is some potential for some respite care grants if your child has certain needs, that families may qualify for a grant up to $400 per year to help offset some respite care, and then earned income tax credits. So these are a list of financial resources and access to some child care assistance. So we're going to go back down to the next one and look at some additional community resources that may be of assistance to you. I strongly encourage all families to consider getting some type of mental health counseling for children that are coming to live with them, mainly because they've experienced trauma. There may be some anger and grief and loss issues. There may be some other underlying mental health issues. One of the places may be through Chesapeake Integrated Behavioral Health for those who live in Chesapeake, if not, to seek out some private mental health counselors. Not only for the children, there may be a need for family counseling too. NAMI is an excellent organization that has a large number of programs virtually and an excellent resource for if you have any mental health issues. And this may be a place to go if you are parenting a child because their biological parent has some mental health issues. Food is, what can I say about food? We know children have appetites. We know with COVID, many of us have been faced with reductions in our employment income. And there are many local food pantries at the churches in our community. The food bank is down on Tidewater Drive. The other place for food is through the Chesapeake school system. In the schools, they serve lunches and breakfast. You can stop and pick them up 2 days a week. So you could check that out through your child's school. YMCA is another place that provides access for, I would consider it respite time. They also are providing some tutoring for children. And we see the rest there ranging from your faith communities to Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia. If you're one of those families that are caring for grandchildren or a cousin or a niece or a nephew, but you're also taking care of an older parent, they provide services for individuals 60 years of age and older. They also do a lot of work with pharmacy connections. So if you need, are on multiple medications and need to look at your resources to obtain your medications. And we have the Family and Community Engagement Office that Lisa shared with you, where Shay and Eunice do an excellent job of staffing and providing resources for you. On the other side, those are community services ranging from WIC and baby care for little ones up to 4 and 5 years of age. Our health department that provides inoculations. We have early Head Start and Head Start, Boys and Girls Clubs, CHKD for medical care, and they have multiple offices throughout the area. They also do some mental health work. Our libraries are a wealth of information. We have Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and the Independent Center, which will help if you are working with a child that has learning disabilities or has some intellectual challenges. And then our agency, Kids, Kin, and Caregivers. So there are multiple resources out there. If you need some additional help, we'll be happy to help you get connected. Okay. So I like this. I looked at this. We're all going to go skydiving. I put it out there. It's a picture for strategies for self-care. I think it always goes back to thinking of every time you get on an airplane, they always tell you to put your mask on first if you're going to be taking care of someone sitting next to you. And I can't stress it enough that if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to continue to take care of others. You're just going to wear yourself out. You may become ill, and then you're just going to have to look at some other strategies. So before you start to feel overwhelmed, I'd like to remind you, one is you need to take care of yourself. That's not being selfish, that's practical advice. You need to be able to acknowledge and accept your own feelings regarding this, and it can be, sometimes it's good, sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm tired of it, sometimes I'm frustrated, but we can look at our feelings. Others is connecting with others in similar situations, being open and honest with her communication, and don't be embarrassed to ask for help. We don't want to, many of us were taught that it's showing a sign of weakness for asking for help, but raising children really takes a village to make sure all of their needs are met and that we can do have good family dynamics. So let's go on to see what else we can do for our own self-care. So I want to read for you first this thing that talks about food for thought. And I want you to think about this. As parents, we really do often put the needs of others before our own, thinking we will eat after everyone has gotten enough food. The problem is we continue to go undernourished until we fall ill or break down, and then no one gets fed. So I want you to think about that when there's times that are saying, I'll just do one more thing. It's okay. I can go without my medicine. I don't need any sleep. I can just keep on going like that little Energizer bunny. So these are some tips for your own self-care. And when you're practicing good self-care for yourself, you're also teaching those children you're parenting how to take care of themselves and practicing good self-care. Planning ahead. If you plan ahead, just like those routines, sometimes that stress level stays down. Number 2 is learn to delegate. I know that's a real challenge, particularly for some of us women that like our house just so everything in an orderly position. But it's okay. Those children can help. Other family members can help. It may not be perfect, but it's good to delegate. And they're also learning how to do things. Eating healthy. There have been a lot of things in magazines, the newspaper, virtual seminars, webinars about healthy eating. Sometimes we have to become more flexible. If the bathroom's not perfect, if the child's clothes aren't pressed, if we don't have all those homemade cookies, store-bought ones are okay. So we can do those flexible things. Keeping a journal. And I like to look at a journal 2 ways. You can have the journal where you're going to write down all of your frustrations. I am so mad. I can't believe they did this. They promised this. Or the other half of the journal is, these are the 3 things that went well today. This is what I am blessed with. Start a gratitude jar. And a gratitude jar, it can be a cup, it can be a little box, it can be a quart canning jar, it can be whatever, and little strips of paper. Everybody can do that and write down what you're grateful for that day and put them in. And that's also a tool where everybody puts them in, and in at the end of the week or the end of the month, you dump them out and read them and talk about them as a family. The next one is keep a list. This is your emergency list. Sometimes you may need to go to, but other times it's just that I know they're there if I need them. And that is writing down the phone numbers, the email address, or however you reach them, of 2 to 3 people that you can call. And that's calling outside of the hours of 9 to 5, because we know when we need to talk to someone, when things go wrong, it's not between 9 and 5. It's usually those later hours in the day. So to put those down when people can call, you can call that they may not be able to come over. They can just listen, that they're going to be supportive to you. Exercising regularly. You can use meditation or listening to music. You can learn how to set things to learning to set boundaries. It's okay to say no. Thank you for asking me, but no, I can't do that right now. I'm so glad you thought of it, but I'll have to pass this time. Or with your children, when you sit down and maybe you made a decision, and what did we decide? We've decided on Saturday night, you have to be in by 10. They're saying, but Mom, but Grandma, Susie gets to stay out till 11. What did we decide on? And the answer is still no. I love you. And the answer is still no. So those are setting boundaries with children, setting boundaries with others. Now, the next one is keeping your self-care box. In my self-care box, I like to keep some candy. Chocolate is my favorite. You might like chewing gum. You might like gumdrops. You might like jelly beans. You might like something else. You might like chips. That's your own self-care box. You might like to put something in there that you can have access to, maybe special tea, maybe hot chocolate that you can access, maybe a book that you like to read. I have one grandmother in her self-care box. She keeps a puzzle book. She found it from the dollar store and she gets to play on that. And she goes, when I need time away, I tell them it's my time. I have to take a time out. She takes it and she works on it, and it helps her relieve her stress level. The importance of keeping regular medical appointments. That's why we referred you over to looking at your medical insurance, looking at FAMOUS. If you are still struggling with those issues, Access Partnership for Women periodically has funding or access to mammograms. So we want to make sure you have those medical appointments. For many families and individuals, the importance of spirituality helps them with their good self-care. And mindfulness is the last one, where you're really being in tune to what's going around you using your five senses. So these are your food for thought and your self-care. I challenge you to pick out one or two to use them. So last of all, we've covered talking about family relationships, what everyone struggles with, some pointers for building that family communication. And we talked about community resources. We've looked at some self-care pointers. Now, I want to share with these things. Sometimes years ago, when I would go to talk to the legislators, they'd say, well, why should they do that? They had problems raising their own children. But I want to share with you what we know about the resiliency and resourcefulness of kinship families. When they've interviewed many kinship families, what they have found is that they've become very flexible. They've learned to be flexible to the new and ongoing demands of caregiving, of parenting the second time around. And sometimes those, the flexibility, you may be running smoothly and all of a sudden you might hit a little bump in the road as things change. And then you're going to, switch your plans around. Those who do well have learned how to develop some pro-social activities and relationships and worked on building those relationships, focusing on open communication and respect in the families, respect with others, and really listening, asking those what happened questions and focusing on needs. They've been able to identify and search out and receive help from other agencies or programs that are out there in the community. And that goes back to it takes a village. They recognize the benefits of raising the children. We know the children aren't placed in foster care. You understand the children. You've helped them become, you put them into a stable environment. You've helped meet their needs. You've understood their developmental needs, their educational needs, their social needs. Families have found ways to resolve issues and address them positively, looking at not what we did wrong, but what did we learn from this and what can we do differently? And last of all, there's that mutual support that's developed between the kinship caregiver and the children that they're raising, particularly if we're looking at issues from some of the grandparents that we've spoken to, where maybe there's a need that they have some needs in the home, or there's that support there, and the child's providing that support and she's providing that support for the child. So that's the mutual support. And last of all, I'd like to share with you some of the benefits to children that are being raised in kinship families. And research has been out there but you already know this. They fare better, much better with their behavioral and social problems when they're raised in a kinship family. Kinship families are aware of their intricacies about their behavior. They're willing to search out and get medical help. They're willing to search out and get counseling. If there's medication that needs to be used, families have stepped forward to make sure the children are getting all of these things to meet their needs. The children now feel a sense of safety and stability. For the most part, they know the relatives, or they've learned to know their relatives. They don't worry anymore. Am I going to be abused? Am I going to be neglected? Or am I going to be abandoned? That someone is there for me. And it only takes one child it only takes one adult that they have learned that they can trust and meet their needs to help when they have had issues of trauma. Also, we know that children who are raised in kinship families have the opportunity to maintain contact with siblings and other family members, other grandparents, others, aunts and uncles. Maybe their brothers and sisters are living with other relatives, or maybe some of their brothers or sisters are still in the home with their birth parents, but they maintain that contact, which is so important to them. We also know that children who are raised in kinship families maintain contact more frequently with their birth parents. And the only caveat that I really do need to add to that is to make sure that it's provided so that the children are in a safe situation. We know that we talked about the trauma. They maintain their attachment. They really have a better opportunity for the rest of their lives. And one of the things that I really want to share about that is several years ago, I had an opportunity to go with one of our grandparents up to a congressional hearing up in Washington. And as she spoke, she closed with the comment, and it's really resonated with me throughout the work that I've been doing with kinship families, is that children don't age out of family. And I think that's so important to hear. So this is, I want to go on now and tell you a little bit about our agency. So I need to have you step back one more. Our upcoming activities. Okay, so we have some really good upcoming, like she said, I am the executive director for Kids, Kin, and Caregivers. We provide a wide range of comprehensive services for kinship families. And that can be aunts and uncles, grandparents, any type of relatives. We also work with adoptive parents that have adopted a relative's child, or foster parents that are fostering a family member. So our first upcoming activity is we have our Kinship Care 101. It is an 8-week course. This is a free course. It's a virtual education series, and our topics include understanding the new normal, trauma-informed care, technology and social media issues, family relationships and healthy communication, legal issues and documents, parenting in the 21st century, and other related topics. And after you attend the 8 weeks, you'll receive a certificate. We also have ongoing our Great Grands Coffee and Conversation groups, which are for information and support, which allows you to listen and talk with others who share your same responsibilities and similar concerns. It provides you with an opportunity to learn about resources. We meet weekly, but it also provides you a safe environment where you can talk to others that are raising a relative's child about sometimes the ups and downs that go on in families. We know that we don't really want to share what's always going with our other adult children. We might not want to share with our best girlfriends, our church community, but within the support group, there are others who really understand, yes, this is going on, I understand, and we're here to support you. We have our King Kids Club for youth and children. We meet on the first and third Wednesdays at 6:30. It's for an exciting time of virtual adventures. And then we have our Youth Pulse program for our teens and tweens. And coming up with them, we have our teen cuisine cooking class for ages 12 to 15. If you have a 12 to 15-year-old, we partnered with Virginia Cooperative Extension. They get a cooking kit and 5 weeks of cooking classes, all virtual. And we're so excited. It's a wonderful opportunity. And we're also going to be adding a youth life skills class for middle schoolers. So there's a lot out there for our families. And we also help you find and link you with the resources and community services. So those are the upcoming things we have. And for my contact information, you can go down. This is who I am. And this is how you can reach us via email, phone, text, or on our website. So it's been a privilege to talk to all of you tonight. And I thank you for providing me with this opportunity. I'll turn it back over to you now, Miss Lisa.
Thank you so much, Kathy. That was fabulous. And I hope that our families got a lot of information. You have a lot of valuable resources for us. If you are a grandparent, relative, or caregiver raising another family member's child, please reach out to Dr. Dial and her team. They have a wealth of knowledge, programs, and services to assist you. Again, if you have any other questions, you can contact Dr. Dial, or you can contact us at our office, and we'll be more than happy to connect you with Dr. Dial. This concludes our webinar presentation. Remember, families and communities work better together. Thank you all and have a great evening.